Hey guys, welcome to Through the Bible Verse by Verse, a plain and simple study of the entire Bible, book by book, chapter by chapter, and verse by verse. Once again, I am without a camera. Maybe good news for some of you because you don't have to look at my mug, but I am doing this voiceover style, and then, like I say, soon I will have my camera back in motion. Anyway, we are in First Kings chapter 2. And I left off with, and I'm going to jump right into it here. I left off with David's last words to Solomon, and then right after that, he passes away, he dies. And I think this is some good wisdom and good counsel. I think all leaders should do this, and even you parents, leaving for the next generation. Yet, if you can kind of see your approaching demise, I'm gonna say, you know what? It would be good for you to, I think about exhorting your loved ones, right? You're going to heaven, at least if you're saved, right? You're going to heaven. That's your hope. And anyway, that would be good. All right. So this is what David is doing, and David is also giving him some counsel. In other words, tie up some of these loose ends that he doesn't want plaguing, pulling over from his generation. Like last time when we talked about Joab, he said, "Look, I'm gonna pick it up at verse 5 and read, because I didn't read 6, in terms of what David is telling him actually to do." But Joab was an evil person. He was an evil commander. He was a good commander. He was a capable warrior, but he was evil. And these were his nephews, his sister Zeruiah, which is very interesting that you see her name mentioned repeatedly during the time of David. That's something unusual in terms of with women, but sons of Zeruiah. Okay, usually it's the father, sons of the father. But this was David's sister. Now his other nephew, Amasa, whom Joab murdered, was the son of his other sister. And so, anyway, verse 5 again. You also know what Joab, son of Zeruiah, did to me, and what he did to the two commanders of Israel's army. Excuse me. Abner, son of Ner, and Amasa, son of Jether. He murdered them in a time of peace, and to avenge blood shed in the war. He spilled the blood on his own waistband and on his sandals of his feet. Act according to your wisdom, and do not let his gray head descend to Sheol. Excuse me, in peace. In other words, execute him. But this was a judgment of execution because of the evil that Joab had done. And you also may remember even doing David's sin. David didn't necessarily mention that, but doing his sin that actually produced Solomon. Remember, with his mother Bathsheba. We're going to see her later on. But you remember David's sin to have Uriah, Bathsheba's husband, killed, and Joab, in my opinion, took advantage and killed some other men. Okay, all right. We don't have any detail about that because that wasn't the focus of the story, but other men died in that as well. Verse 7, show loyalty to the sons of Barzillai, the Gileadite, and let them be among those who eat at your table, because they supported me when I fled from your brother Absalom. Now notice this. So David had not forgotten, I should say. David has not forgotten what that whole Absalom incident. As king, he probably did not take vengeance like he wanted to, because there was a time to heal the nation. But notice he says right here, treat him well. Verse 8, keep an eye on Shimei, son of Gera, the Benjamite from Bahurim, who is with you. Now, this is interesting to me because if you remember, when David was on the run from Absalom, Shimei came out and he threw stones and cursed at him. And at the time, one of David's men said, "Let me take his head off." And David's like, "No, God, he's cursing me because, the Lord wants him to curse me." But notice he remembers this. Now, what's kind of interesting, but it's not, we don't know because we don't have details here. But after David came back, Shimei came and humbled himself and apologized, right? And but notice here, even though David, you could say, somewhat forgave him, never forgot. Think about that, because notice what he says about it. Keep an eye on Shimei, son of Gera, the Benjamite from Bahurim, who is with you. And that's kind of interesting there, that he's with Solomon. Excuse me. In other words, he's in the mix there. He has something to do with him. He's not banished. He uttered malicious curses against me the day I went from Mahanaim. But he came down to meet me at the Jordan River, and I swore to him by the Lord, I would never kill you with the sword. So don't let him go unpunished, for you are a wise man, and you know how to deal with him to bring his gray head down to Sheol with the blood. In other words, I'm just going to leave it up to you how you're going to deal with him. My suggestion, kill him, but hey, he did apologize, right? Interesting. Then it says, then David rested with his fathers and was buried in the city of David. And the length of David's reign over Israel was 40 years. He reigned 7 years in Hebron, 33 years in Jerusalem. And Solomon sat on the throne of his father David, and his kingship was firmly established. Now, that's it last time. Solomon's reign, his 40 years, would be in a time of peace. David was a time of war and establishing the kingdom. And Solomon's going to reap the benefits of that, but we will see how that will go. Not the best. We will see this later. But anyway, verse 13. Now, Adonijah, son of Haggith, came to Bathsheba, Solomon's mother, and she asked, "Did you come peacefully?" "Peacefully," he replied, and then asked, "May I talk with you?" "Go ahead," she answered. Now, Adonijah, remember, tried to take the kingdom when he thought David was going to die. Now, this wasn't a coup attempt, but it was simply, he certainly tried to exalt himself as king. One, against the counsel of God, and two, over against his father's permission. Verse 15. Now watch this statement here. You know the kingship was mine. Stop. Right there he's wrong. Right off the bat he's wrong. It was never his. No one ever promised it to him. No one ever said he was entitled to it. He exalted himself. And already this conversation has gone wrong. Already you can see that right there. It says, you know the kingship was mine, he said. All of Israel expected me to be king. Not true. He said, but then the kingship was turned over to my brother, for the Lord gave it to him. So he doesn't mean that, because he would have said the first statement. If God gave it to Solomon, then it was never his in the first place. So again, right here, wrong motive. Verse 16. So now I have just one request of you, and don't turn me down. She said, go on. He replied, speak to King Solomon, since he won't turn you down. Let him give me Abishag the Shunammite as a wife. Very well, Bathsheba replied, I will speak to the king for you. Now, it's unclear if Bathsheba was trying to be peaceful or kind of naive. Okay? It's still bad. This is going to turn out bad for Adonijah. Now, you remember, as I said, when there were two events that helps us to kind of understand why this is so wrong. I mentioned it last time. What got Saul's son killed, and when he instructed Adonijah, when he instructed um, uh, Solomon to execute Joab for killing Abner. Okay, um, Saul's son Ishbosheth, who had took the kingdom after the death of Saul, accused his really would have been his uncle, I think, or great uncle, Abner, of sleeping with one of his concubines. And that so enraged Abner that he said, "I'm going to take the kingdom from you. I'm going to give it to David." And then there was the other thing when Absalom took, when he executed his coup. One of the things he did was he went and he slept with all of David's concubines. Okay, and that was to show people the disdain, and also that he had put away, he had conquered one of the ways he had conquered the king or previous king. And here is Adonijah attempting to do that. He won't get far, but he's attempting to do that. Verse 19, so Bathsheba went to King Solomon to speak to him about Adonijah. The king stood up to greet her, bowed to her, sat down on his throne, and had a throne place for the king's mother. So she sat down at his right hand. Now, kind of interesting, the kind of position. Whenever someone is sitting at the right hand, this is the position of power. This is the position of authority. And we're going to see other, queen mothers, as it were, who kind of, remember he first went to Bathsheba because he said, you kind of will influence over him. Verse 20, then she said, I have just one small request of you, and don't turn me down. Go ahead, ask. The king replied, for I won't turn you down. So she said, let Abishag, the Shunammite, be given to your brother Adonijah as wife. And the king Solomon answered his mother, why are you requesting Abishag the Shunammite for Adonijah? See, is my elder brother. Now keep that in mind. You might as well ask the kingship for him. For Abiathar, the priest, and for Joab, son of Zuri. Now, notice he mentions those three, right? Because remember, they all attempted to take the throne away from Solomon. And who knows what would have happened if Adonijah had became king, but he had murdered Bathsheba and Adonijah. But it was still a bad move, because notice he said, Adonijah said, I'm his elder brother. Now, the reason why that statement is important is because the elder brother usually would be the one who would be what's called the firstborn, or have the firstborn rights. And that was, because he was the elder, the passing of the father, the kingdom would have been to him, the family business. He would become the matriarch of the family. And again, this was Adonijah's slick way of trying to gain the hearts of the people. So he says, you might as well ask the kingship for him, for Abiathar and the priest, and for Joab, son of Zuri. Then Solomon took an oath by the Lord, may God punish me and do so severely if Adonijah had not made this request at the cost of his life. Now, if the Lord lives, the one who established me, seated on the throne of my father David, and made me a dynasty as he has promised, I swear Adonijah would be put to death today. And the king gave the order to Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, who struck down Adonijah, and he died. That was the first one. Okay, that was the first one. Even though he had given him a chance, that was the first time. He says, no, 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 he needs to go. And think about this. Had he not done this, think of all of the plots that he would have had to contend with, all of the attempted coups, or even you know, and even just removing all of the threat. Verse 26, the king said to Abiathar, the priest, go to your fields in Anath. Even though you deserve to die, I will not put you to death today, since you carry the ark of the Lord God in the presence of my father David, and you suffered through all that my father suffered. So Solomon banished Abiathar from being the Lord's priest, and it fulfilled the Lord's prophecy he had spoken at Shiloh against Eli's family. So if you remember, Abiathar was actually, he was not only the priest, but remember his family had got wiped out by Saul. Verse 28. Now the news reached Joab, since he had supported Adonijah, but not Absalom. Joab fled to the Lord's tabernacle and took hold of the horns of the altar. Now, this was the act of mercy, grabbing hold of the horns of the altar. It was actually, Joab should have been asking the mercy from God, but it was his way of just kind of asking for mercy. Verse 29. It was reported to King Solomon, Joab had fled to the Lord's tabernacle and is now beside the altar. Then Solomon sent for Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, and told him, go and strike him down. So Benaiah went to the tabernacle and said to Joab, this is what the king says, come out. But Joab said, no, for I will die here. So Benaiah took a message back to the king. This is what Joab said, and this is how he answered me. And the king said to him, do just as he said, strike him down and bury him, in order to remove from me and from my father's house the blood of Joab shed without just cause. The Lord will bring back on his own blood and on his head, because he struck down 2 men more righteous and better than he, without my father David's knowledge. And with his sword Joab murdered Abner, son of Ner, commander of the Israel army, and Amasa, son of Jether, commander of Judah's army. The blood will come back on Joab's head and on the head of his descendants forever. But for David and his descendants, his dynasty, and his throne, there will be peace from the Lord forever. Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, again I messed up butchered these pronunciations here, went up, struck down Joab, and put him to death. And he was buried in a house in the wilderness. Then the king appointed Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, in Joab's place over the army, and he appointed Zodok the priest in Abiathar's place. Then the king summoned Shimei and said to him, build a house for yourself in Jerusalem and live there, but don't leave there or go out anywhere else. And on the day that you leave and cross the Kidron Valley, know for sure that you will surely die. Your blood will be upon your head. Shimei said to the king, this sentence is fair, and your servants will do as my lord the king has spoken. And Shimei lived in Jerusalem for a long time. But then, at the end of 3 years, 2 of Shimei's slaves ran away to Achish, and son of Maacah, king of Gath. Shimei was informed, look, your servants are in Gath. So Shimei saddled up his donkey and set out to Achish, at Gath to search for a slave, and he went and brought them back from Gath. And it was reported to Solomon that Shimei had gone from Jerusalem to Gath, and he had returned. So the king summoned Shimei and said to him, didn't I make you swear by the Lord and warn you, saying, on the day that you leave and go anywhere else, know for sure that you will certainly die? And you said to me, the sentence is fair, I will obey. So why have you not kept the Lord's oath and the command that I gave you. The king also said, you yourself know all the evil that you did to my father, David. Therefore the Lord has brought back your evil on his head. But King Solomon will be blessed, and David's throne will remain established before the Lord forever. Kind of interesting. He might have been saying this because of the words that Shimei had said to him. Remember that when he thought David was going to be destroyed, and he said that the house of Saul would be restored to his father's name, or Saul's name. And the king commanded Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, and he went out and struck Shimei down, and he died. So the kingdom was established in Solomon's hand. Now, what this also means is that all of this, even though he gave mercy to them, they would have been thorns in his side had he not done it. Each one of those men would have been thorns in his side. So one, he rooted out all of the evil that they had done. He brought justice to it so that this would not spill over as Saul's sin had done in David's time. And so now he had kind of a clean slate to start his kingdom. All right, guys. Don't forget to like and share this video. Hit that subscribe button. I'd love to hear your comments as well. See you in chapter 3.